The massive amphitheater stretched before Captain Jake Morrison, like a living organism, filled with representatives from 10,000 different species across the galaxy. The Galactic Unity Conference happened only once every solar cycle, bringing together the most powerful civilizations to discuss trade, territory, and treaties. As Earth's military liaison, Jake had expected to remain silent in the background while Ambassador Elena Voss delivered humanity's prepared statements. That plan died the moment Voss opened her mouth. "Esteemed delegates," Voss began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber through universal translators. "Humanity comes before you today not as equals, but as your humble servants. We acknowledge our primitive nature and beg for your continued patience as we struggle to evolve beyond our barbaric origins." Jake's jaw tightened. This wasn't the speech they had rehearsed. The real Ambassador Voss had been replaced 3 days ago by someone from the Diplomatic Corps' Shadow Division, someone who apparently believed humanity should grovel before alien powers. The crowd stirred. Several species that Jake recognized as longtime human allies shifted uncomfortably in their biopods. The Theran delegation, massive crystalline beings who had fought alongside human forces in the Outer Rim conflicts, actually turned their light cores away in what he knew was a gesture of disappointment. "We propose," the false ambassador continued, "to offer our entire military fleet as auxiliary forces to any civilization that requires additional firepower. Our soldiers exist only to serve your greater wisdom." A ripple of shock ran through the assembly. Jake watched as species after species began exchanging rapid communications through their various methods of speech, thought, and bioluminescence. The human delegation was offering to become mercenaries for hire. The colony prime minister, a being resembling a 6-armed octopus with silver skin, raised multiple appendages. "Ambassador Voss, this represents a significant departure from humanity's previous positions. Are you certain this reflects your species' consensus?" "Absolutely," Voss replied smoothly. "Humanity recognizes that we are the youngest species in this assembly, the least developed, and the most prone to violence. We believe our best contribution is to place our destructive tendencies in service of more enlightened civilizations." Jake had heard enough. Protocol demanded he remain silent, but Protocol had never anticipated outright betrayal of his species. He stood from his position in the human delegation section, his dress uniform catching the amphitheater shifting. "Lights, I request permission to address the assembly," he announced, his voice cutting through the chamber's acoustic design with military precision. Voss spun toward him, her face pale. "Captain Morrison, you are out of order. Return to your seat immediately." The galactic moderator, an ancient being known as the first speaker whose species had founded the conference millennia ago, gestured with appendages that looked like living metal. "The human captain has observed proper protocol. He may speak." Jake stepped forward into the central speaking circle, feeling the weight of 10,000 alien gazes upon him. Behind him, he could hear Voss hissing urgent orders to security, but the conference's neutrality rules protected him now. "Honorable delegates," Jake began, "what you have just heard does not represent humanity's position, nor does it represent the truth about my species." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several species leaned forward with interest, while others maintained careful neutrality. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. I have served alongside many of your peoples in joint operations across 3 sectors. I have seen humans die protecting Kelani colonies from pirates. I have watched human medics work for days without rest to save Theran younglings from plague. I have witnessed human engineers sacrifice their lives to prevent reactor failures that would have killed millions of beings they had never met." The Theran delegation's light cores began glowing brighter, and Jake recognized it as a sign of approval. "The woman who spoke before me is not who she claims to be. Jake continued, his voice growing stronger. 3 days ago, our real ambassador was quietly replaced by someone from a faction within our government that believes humanity should surrender its sovereignty in exchange for protection. But that is not what humanity chose when we joined this galactic community. Voss was frantically speaking into a communication device, but Jake pressed on. We came to the stars not as conquerors or as servants, but as partners. Yes, we are young. Yes, we make mistakes. But we have also proven our worth time and again. When the Void Plague threatened the outer colonies, human scientists worked alongside colony researchers to develop the cure. When the rogue AI crisis nearly consumed the neutral zone, human military forces fought beside Theran warriors to contain the threat. The first speaker's metallic appendages moved in. What Jake had learned was their species' equivalent of nodding. You speak of shared struggles, Captain Morrison, but your official representative has offered your military as hired weapons. How do you reconcile this? Jake turned slightly to face Voss, who had gone completely white. Because she knows that humanity's greatest strength has never been our weapons, Honorable First Speaker. Our strength lies in our refusal to bow to tyranny, whether it comes from alien invaders or from our own people who would sell our freedom for the illusion of security. The chamber fell silent. Jake could feel the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Every species here faced this choice at some point in their development, he continued. The choice between safety and dignity, between survival and honor. Humanity chooses to stand as equals, to contribute as partners, and to face the universe with our heads held high. We offer our friendship, our knowledge, our strength when needed, and our loyalty when earned. But we will not offer our freedom. The Kelani Prime Minister's silver skin began shifting through colors that Jake recognized as deep consideration. And if your government disagrees with this position, Captain Morrison, Jake smiled grimly, then I guess we'll find out how much humanity really values freedom, won't we? The first speaker raised all of their appendages, calling for order as the assembly erupted in discussions across dozens of species. Through the chaos, Jake caught sight of Voss being quietly escorted from the chamber by beings he didn't recognize. Hours later, after emergency communications with Earth and a formal vote by the Human Colonial Council, Jake found himself temporarily appointed as Earth's spokesperson. The Assembly had voted to table humanity's membership status, pending resolution of their internal political situation. But as Jake looked out at the thousands of alien faces, many showing expressions he had learned to read as respect, he knew he had made the right choice. Humanity would find its place among the stars, but it would do so on its own terms. Sometimes silence was indeed golden, but sometimes speaking truth to power was worth more than all the gold in the Galaxy.Chat controls. Sonnet 4.